Welcome to the Misophonia podcast. This is season 5, episode 19. My name is Adil Ahmad, and I have Misophonia. This one's a relatively short one, but no less fascinating, especially in light of the recent news of a student in Tennessee suing for basic accommodations to manage misophonia. Today I'm talking to Jessica, who is a senior in college, and we talk about living on campus, being in class, and all her coping tips. She just found out about miso a few years ago, and we talk about how she brought it up with her parents, who actually were her first triggers, no surprise. Just a reminder to follow the show on Instagram at Misophonia Podcast, also on Facebook, Twitter, and sometimes TikTok. You can email me anytime at hello@misophoniapodcast.com. And I also keep forgetting to mention the Misophonia Podcast app, which was built right here from scratch, which it's not only a podcast player, but also a sound generator, a journal, and a resource guide. Remember, if you like this or any other episode, you can help by leaving a quick rating or review wherever you listen to the show. All right, now here's my conversation with Jessica. Welcome, Jessica, to the podcast. Good to have you here.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So let's start with whereabouts are you?
Yeah, I'm located kind of in the Midwest of the U.S., around that area. I'm currently attending college right now. I normally live closer to New York, but I'm around here at the moment to complete my studies.
Great. Yeah. What are you studying?
Yeah, I'm studying music education.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've had musicians. I've had a music therapy major on in the past, actually not too long ago. So
Wonderful.
yeah, it's very cool. And creativity and misophonia has been kind of a recurring topic. So we probably touch on to things like that. But do you want to? Yeah, maybe I usually kind of for students, I kind of usually start with like how's student life with misophonia.
Yeah, it's always a very interesting experience because, for one, I live in a dorm setting and
Mm-hmm.
sounds outside walls and everything. I currently don't live with a roommate, so that's not an issue, but sounds outside walls, sounds above me. I have a particular issue when it comes to pounding noises from behind kind of walls and everything. So that can always be an interesting experience in trying to settle down. I usually try and find different ways to cope with that. They don't always work because whatever does. But
Right.
yeah. And then
And
as Mhm.
you're a musician, so it's got to be. Are you playing like a what instrument are you playing?
I am a cellist.
Oh, okay. Well, then, that's interesting because then, right, it's not like you're playing like a heavy guitar that can kind of drown out other noises. It's
Yeah.
much more nuanced. So getting that right environment is even more critical, I would think.
hmm Yeah.
And yeah, interesting. Okay, so you were going to say something, and then I cut you
Yeah.
off with.
No worries. I was going to mention the classroom experience as well. That has always had its particular challenges in very quiet setting, very quiet lecture setting, sitting close to people who make recurring sounds, whether it be like, I find that knuckle cracking has become very popular lately.
Oh,
um,
really? Yeah.
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 And then other kinds of things, leg shaking, the repetitive sounds that come from that, and also the sight of it. I tend to have issues when it comes to
The
seeing.
Misophonia,
Yeah.
right?
hmm I've had
And
issues with that.
yeah. So how are you dealing with that in the classroom setting?
It's it's always an interesting experience. Sometimes some coping mechanisms work, sometimes others just don't. It depends because, as far as sight triggers, I usually kind of just put my hand in just the right place so I can't
Mm-hmm.
see that going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's I try my best, at least. It sometimes looks a little weird, but I do what I can.
Do you ever
And
mention it to anybody, like your teachers or anybody?
I have mentioned it to some close friends because sometimes I worry as coming off as like, oh, this person is just rude, or oh, this person is just bothered by nothing, because some people don't always like to try and understand with that because it's
Mm-hmm.
something very new that they don't know about.
Hmm.
And then I have told some close friends, most close friends that I've talked to have been very accommodating and understanding that sometimes these things just happen. As far as teachers go, I have actually had a lot of teachers that have helped me out with some of these things, have offered to help me move seats, have offered to let me take tests in separate locations or with headphones in to really not sit in that such silent setting where somebody could make a single noise and completely just throw
Yeah,
me completely off the track.
yeah. I mean, change the rest of your life,
Oh yeah.
and possibly, if if you do badly on a on an important task. Well, that's great that
Hmm.
your teachers have seemed to been kind of you've had relative success in getting accommodations from teachers. That's great.
Yeah.
Did you just find out recently that it had a name? I'm just curious, like kind of when your trajectory.
Yeah. So I'm a senior in college right now. I found out my freshman year back in 2018 that it had a name. I accidentally stumbled upon it because I was just on some Twitter thread where somebody was talking about leg shaking and how
uh,
some people kind of had issues with the sounds. So I looked into it and I'm like, hey, I have that same thing. And then I see this name of just misophonia. So I'm like, what is this? And I looked it up on Google and just kind of went through exactly what it was with all the symptoms, and just about every single thing matched with what I've been
yeah.
experiencing. And it was just this amazing moment of, oh my gosh, there's an actual name to this. I am not just crazy or a very angry person. This is something that people experience and that's real.
Yeah, yeah. And, I guess going back, like, what were some of your early memories?
Yeah. Some of my earliest memories have been just getting frustrated in class settings or by certain sounds that I just didn't like, whether it be some sort of loud chewing sound or some sort of repetitive ticking sound I'd often find in classrooms. I just try and cover my ears for a bit, try and just block everything out, and try and manage with my stress. And I thought for the longest time that it was just me going crazy, like I mentioned. Yeah. And
Yeah,
a lot
and
of,
was it
oh,
mainly school, or were you also getting triggered at home?
it was also at home. Home took a little bit later into high school.
Ah,
My first memory of this happening was sophomore year of high school, where I just remember sitting in my classroom and dealing with that. And when eventually it evolved to home issues because my dad, he's very lovely, but he does have a repeated dry cough issue because of
mm,
medication, unfortunately. So I've heard that cough a lot. I've heard things like that where it has slowly gotten to me more and more.
right, 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 okay. Yeah, it's interesting, yeah, as you probably know, usually it starts in the home and then it kinda maybe or maybe not hits school, but, it's interesting that, yeah, your school's been a recurring theme for you. Um, do you feel like, music's a big part of your life. Was there ever kind of a therapy for you, like hitting cello, when you're getting triggered to just kind of like try to come back to normal?
Oh yeah, it definitely has been. I've found that kind of playing any sort of music on any instrument, or I like to sing as well, just just finding a chance to relax and just allow me to kind of use my emotions in a way that doesn't kind of fully activate my brain in a kind of way of frustration or anything.
Hmm.
It's just activating myself in a very calm way. And this book goes both with playing music or listening to music as well. That was a big escape of mine.
Yeah, I'm imagining you'd get triggered and put on headphones or earbuds or whatever to just kind
Yeah.
of drown things out, or just kind of come back to normal, I guess. What did your parents think when? I mean, how were you kind of reacting? Um, as these early triggers were happening at home at least.
Yeah, I don't know 100% if my parents truly reacted much because I would do my best to kind of hide these things generally
Mhm.
because once again, I just thought I was crazy, so I figured there was no need to bring this up really. I just needed to
Yeah.
learn to control myself as best as possible and just kind of learn to deal with it. So I tried to hide it. I don't know if they could tell or not my frustration. They never ended up bringing it up, thankfully. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, since then, have you brought it up with them at all?
Yeah, I remember coming home from college one semester and I have no idea how the conversation started, but I ended up saying, I think I have something going on in my brain that I found out a couple months ago. It's called
Mm,
Misophonia, and my mom started looking it up and researching it and trying to understand it better. And ever since, she's been very helpful in trying to understand what the heck is going on in my brain and what she can do to help me through it.
yeah. Okay. And have you noticed a change at home? Like things have gotten a little bit easier, whether directly from them maybe being accommodating, but also maybe just maybe having it out in the open. Has that kind of like brought any kind of, I don't know, easier to handle?
Yeah, it's been a mix of up and downs
Yeah.
because at first I'm laying kind of my frustrations out on the line that they didn't know were frustrations towards
Yeah.
sounds. This required a little bit of them getting used to, and at first it was like, oh, I don't know if I can deal with managing a person who has so many triggers to such common sounds, but eventually
Mm,
we've all learned to work together really with it. They've been very kind about it. They acknowledge that this is a real thing just going on with me, and they have overall gotten used to it. Occasionally, there will be a little dispute here and there where they
mm,
don't think they are causing too much of a problem or it's something they can't control and it's
right.
causing a problem with me. But we do end up working it out and really talking about it and making it work as best as we can.
Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have my brother.
Okay. And does he, is he also accommodating, or does he tease, or just curious? I've heard a mixed bag.
Yeah, it's a mix here and there. He doesn't necessarily tease all the time. He may get frustrated here and there with it,
Mm,
but in the end, he understands, and overall, it has worked out between us. Ironically, he has had the least of triggers overall for me
mm,
and all of my family. So, I mean, that also helps contribute to maybe a little bit less of a issue with
yeah.
it, but yeah.
Right. Have you you don't have to like go into anything, but like have you had other comorbid conditions that um maybe got, a lot of people have like EDD or OCD or things like that, or anxiety that gets kind of like where the misophonia just kind of gets rolled into that or misdiagnosed. I'm curious if you've had been diagnosed for anything else, and maybe if you've seeked out help.
Yeah, I have not been diagnosed for anything else. I thought for the longest time that this was just a form of anxiety or even
Hmm.
just anger issues that I didn't understand yet. And I
Yeah.
attempted to kind of bring it up to doctors, but I didn't really feel like they were getting it very much. Some tried, because a lot of doctors just don't know what this is, so they really
I
don't
know.
know what to do. Even as I kind of gave them a name, they couldn't do a whole lot. They tried their best, but in some cases, it didn't feel like they were fully understanding what I was going
Right.
for.
Yeah, it's so common, unfortunately. Interesting. And I mean, at school, did you just kind of hold it in as well? Like that was kind of your first triggers. Sounds like you just kind of like didn't you just kind of like bottled it up and just tried to get through.
Yeah, I have worked a lot on trying to bottle it up overall, and if not that, try and find either healthy ways to let it out or just ways to conceal it as best as I can using those coping mechanisms as best as I can. I occasionally tell people, at least people I trust or people who know this is an issue, I just mention, hey, can you please stop doing that? And
Hmm.
most of the time they are understanding about it. Some people occasionally have just gotten a little frustrated asking, why do I need to stop that? Or what's the problem? It's not a big deal, stuff like that. So
Right.
I
The
have
it's not
gotten
a big deal
occasional,
reaction.
yeah. Oh boy, my favorite one.
Yeah, and so yeah, we talked a little bit about music. So you want to go into music education? I'm just curious. Have you thought about how if and how you would kind of um um uh, you know have misophonia as part of that, like whether as an educator, maybe thinking about not triggering people or um but also using music as kind of conscientiously as kind of a therapy. I'm just curious if you've thought about that at all, or you're just kind of focused on like teaching people music.
Yeah, I have definitely been thinking about different ways to help students with misophonia, having my own experience in my hands. I'm actually doing a thesis project next semester where that's going to be my topic and how to help students with misophonia in the classroom because right now there's only ever so much we can do and
Hmm.
usually it's the student who has to ask for it rather than
Hmm.
yeah, and it's always a gamble with realizing whether they can ask it or not based on who the teacher is, things like that. But that's going to be a lot of what I do next semester, which I'm really looking forward to.
Well, I'm looking forward
And
to having you back on the show to talk about that when you're doing that. That'll be fascinating.
absolutely, I'd be happy to.
Have you met anybody else at school or otherwise that has misophonia?
I've only heard through kind of the grapevine. One friend, when I described my problem to him, he was like, "Oh, wait a minute, my friend has that," and that my brain just I could not comprehend that there was another person like me as well. And also another thing I ended up finding out because my mom was actually talking to her sister or my aunt about this and she was mentioning, "Yeah, my daughter has these problems." And my aunt
Oh.
apparently her daughter or my cousin actually also has these issues that I had no
Mm.
idea throughout my entire life that she did. So finding out that was very interesting. And we believe at this point it's kind of run a little bit through my mom's side of the family. My aunt has little hints of it. My mom here and there has issues with very specific sounds. So maybe not to my extent. My cousin may likely has it to my extent, but yeah.
Have you connected with your cousin about that?
I have only briefly discussed it and she's provided advice and like it's very difficult to get through, but you can do this. I wish you the best of luck because unfortunately we do have language barriers. She lives in another continent, so
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. Okay, interesting. But she's okay. She's on another continent, but she's okay. I'm curious if she's like a blood relative of yours or
Yep.
through some other. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Not that there's any hereditary linkage, but it's always an interesting data point. If we're talking about running in the family. Okay, interesting. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess so. You're in college now. Have you thought about we talked about a little bit about I'm very interested in the study that you're going to be doing, but like life after, like in the work environment, basically. I'm just curious what kind of work environments are kind of ahead of you. Would it be research, teaching? Um, because obviously you're going to want to think about you're probably thinking about like how many people are going to be around me to trigger me if what that might be like. It sounds like you probably won't be in like a, kind of a tech open office environment, but I'm curious what would be typical for you, and what are you looking forward to?
Yeah. I am planning most likely for my future, at least for the time being, to be in some sort of music classroom setting,
Hmm.
primarily for either high school or middle school. That's just the range I prefer to work with overall. And I have had concerns here and there of like, what if there's a student in the classroom who constantly makes a certain sound or something like this, and it's just so difficult to control all the time when it, especially if it's a student doing something as just a very simple leg shaking habit. And while I've had that concern, I found that my teaching experiences so far, I'm either so focused on teaching and focusing on the lesson that I have been able to push misophonia to the side or have not even heard it overall, thankfully, yet. So I'm not 100% sure if that will maintain throughout my career, and I still do have worries about that, but thankfully I have not had a severe issue where I'm teaching in the classroom and it's been a problem for me.
Yeah, do you think it's because 'cause you're so focused on your work or you're focused on music, which is kind of a therapy for you that you're able to, um, not notice it so much? Or maybe, the other thing I was gonna ask is, like, do you find that musicians maybe are somehow more sensitive to sounds overall? I don't know if you've been able to make that any any kind of conclusion there.
Yeah, I don't know 100%, but I do know that a lot of my kind of musician colleagues and those that I've worked with are very in tune when it comes to picking out very little details in music, whether it be just something like tone quality and color or just single instrumental lines within a major work.
Mhm.
And I I don't know 100% if it ever impacted misophonia, but there is potentially a chance regarding kind of how the ear listens so acutely.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, do you have any like I don't know, sneak peeks or anything that you'd regarding your upcoming study or kind of things that you know at the well um kind of hypothesis that you're trying to prove, or is it really just kind of like trying to understand, just trying to go in kind of greenfield?
Yeah, I don't have 100% yet every kind of little aspect of it set in place so
Hmm.
far. Since I'm student teaching next semester, I'm hoping to do a lot of my stuff within the classroom setting, which would definitely be helpful in observing students and observing the kind of environment I'd be working with. I
Yeah.
still have a lot to think about in terms of hypothesis and what exactly I'm trying to prove, and also brainstorming those ideas ahead of time and thinking, can I put this in a classroom? And if I walk into the classroom and try and put this in, would it actually work with both the student and other students, with the curriculum, anything like that?
Have you I don't know if you heard the Natalie episode, she goes to UCLA, but I always bring it up when I speak to a student because she started a misophonia support group at UCLA, and has been kind of trying to grow that and getting more, finding other misophones. I don't know if you've thought about doing that at the institution that you're at.
I think that would be definitely something I would like to look
You
into.
might be just a it might be just a group of one at the beginning, but you never know how, once you as you know, like, once you get the definition out there and people read it, many of us won't know what to look for because they think, we think we're just kinda angry people. But when we read the definition, I would imagine that you could, yeah, you can start to have people identify and then come and join. That'd be an interesting thing to try, maybe in conjunction with your research.
Yeah, I really like that. Thank you for the idea.
And yeah, when you come back on, it'd be interesting to talk about to see if you actually got anybody. Um, Very cool. Okay. Yeah, and like in terms of coping methods now, now that you've had some time to know what it is, you've probably done a little bit of research, and I don't know, you may have heard some episodes. I'm curious, kind of what your go-to kind of day-to-day gear or armor is.
Yeah, it's definitely a mix of things. A lot of it is just trying to find new creative ways to cover my ears or just
Mm,
cover one ear and just lean on it ever so slightly to where I'm like pushing my knuckle against the ear, so it's covering it but kind of looks subtle, things like that.
Can you
And
bring
then
like, you must have earbuds or headphones that you
oh yeah.
probably wear quite a bit. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Are you a yeah, go on.
Oh sorry. I have worn earbuds and earplugs very often throughout
Yeah.
my life at school.
Do you have any favorites that are kind of your go-to
Um, I've just
brands or?
been I've just been mostly using either any kind of regular earplugs that I've found. Thankfully,
Mm.
they've worked just fine. I know my dad's an officer and he's done shooting range practice, and they have
Okay,
earplugs there, so he's just snagged me a couple extra and given it to me, and they've worked perfectly.
gotcha. Are you a front or back of the room in person in your classes?
It's a weird mix. I like the front of the room for learning purposes, misophonia purposes. I like the back of the room because for some reason, when I can see the sound or see where the source of the sound is coming from and it's directly in front of me, it's way more comforting to me than if I hear it behind me, which is a little ironic considering my problem in seeing like someone's leg shake or something like that. But for some reason, the sensation of the sound directly in front of me just adds that level of control to myself to where I feel calmer.
That's very interesting. So the control kind of overcomes maybe a bit of the visual.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you ever find yourself mimicking? You know how mimicking for a lot of people
Definitely.
is a therapy.
Oh yeah, I have mimicked quite often. I have just gotten used to that overall. At first,
Hmm.
when I used to do it before I knew misophonia was a thing, I just thought I was being really rude and trying to mock people. But I found out that this is an actual coping thing and that this happens. And then yeah, I do that very frequently as best as I can.
Yeah, it's weird. A lot of people who don't know each other have never, long before they knew it had a name, were doing the same thing. And now the research backs it up. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Kumar's research, but how the motor cortex thought process is like overstimulated when you're seeing somebody, basically when you're getting triggered, and so the parts of your jaw or whatever, or maybe you're in the case of leg shaking, your legs, the part of your brain that would control that is overactive, even though you're not making the movement. And once you mimic, it's kind of like almost, they think it's kind of like, completing that cycle, and so kind of putting your body at ease. So it's interesting. There might be a neurological basis for this mimicking.
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely always love to see new research come out. I recently read this research as well. So, yeah, I love to see the new research and to know that there's so much science behind it that's going on, that
mm-hmm.
there's so many brain processes that's going on, and it just runs throughout all of the brain and all of the body. And I just, it's really nice to know that there's more information coming out, and it gives me a lot of hope for the future of understanding misophonia.
Yeah, no, the fuel. It can't get any. We're so early that the only way is up. It's only going to get better. Um, have you? So it sounds like, so you're going to do some research coming up, and so it sounds like you are thinking about, yourself kind of pushing the envelope a little bit. Have you thought about other ways to, or do you, in any other ways, do any advocacy to try to get the word out, for misophonia, or is
Mhm.
it you're just kind of pretty busy with school?
I initially attempted to do it during my sophomore year of college. I was slated to actually begin doing kind of research on misophonia in general and presenting it to my college at their kind of presentation festival where I'd present like, this is what misophonia is, this is why it's important, and this is why we should start to understand it. But unfortunately, COVID came along and that did not end up happening.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, yeah. Well, now that it's kind of like, um, well, it's evolving. Let's just say, I'm not going to say it's gone away, but
Yeah.
I think yeah, hopefully you'll get more opportunities to do that. Did you find that, uh, uh, you the faculties kind of receptive to that, or is it just, they do some accommodations here and there, but then just leave it at that?
Yeah, the the faculty I've spoken to about this project overall and the kind of research type thing, they've been very for it from all I can see. The professor I proposed it to is particularly in education and special needs in education professor, so
Yeah.
she's very looking forward to working on types of learning accommodations and things like that.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. All right. All right. And this is going to be like you're a sophomore, so you're sophomore
Uh,
right now, or
Senior.
senior? Yeah, you're a senior. Okay, okay. Right. You found out how to name when you were a sophomore. Okay, yeah. So you're going to be coming. Are you going to be go? Do you can think you're going to be doing more, like grad school, after this, or just going right into an education environment?
I'm planning on going into education environment at first and then going back to grad school once I
Okay.
have an idea of where I want to go in my life.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, okay, cool. And then, outside of this, are you like doing music, like, just kind of recreational, like in, I don't know, in any orchestras or groups or chamber music? I'm just curious,
I
outside of school, what you do.
Yeah, I've obviously done a lot of school ensembles and
Yeah.
orchestras and chamber groups. I outside of school or sometimes school sanctioned events, but extracurricular type things. I have done little ensembles. I'm currently playing bass for a performance that will happen later in October, and I also play cello with a trio of my friends. We kind of do an improv type thing every week, and we're hoping to
Mm.
expand that.
Improv theater or like jazz.
Kind of just improv classical music. Sometimes it
Yeah.
can vary into jazz. We don't have a set genre. It's just whatever we're feeling.
So how does that work? You pick some chords and then you just kind of go with it, and it's almost like almost like a jazz almost like a jazz approach, but then it's it's classical music.
Yeah, it's that's pretty
Interesting.
much yeah. That's pretty much exactly what we do. We just pick a key, go with it, and yeah, it's me on cello, a friend on violin, and a friend on clarinet.
Yeah. Do you have any I don't know, anything on YouTube or anything that we could see? I'd be super curious to
Uh,
see how that works.
we do not currently, but I we are
Okay.
working on trying to figure out some kind of social media. We
Yeah,
need
yeah.
to get on that.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really interesting. And then bass, you're playing double bass or like rock bass or
This one specifically is electric bass.
Okay, okay, interesting. Gotcha. And then the singing, what kind of singing? I'm curious.
I pretty much do any kind of singing. I've
Yeah.
mainly stumbled into the realms of classical and vocal jazz, but I'm slowly entering kind of that rock music type thing because I've always been a big rock and roll fan. So working
I'm
on
curious.
evolving that.
Yeah. So, and what do you go to any kind of music when you're trying to come back from a trigger, or are there certain types of music maybe that are better for you when you're
Yeah,
trying to when you're getting triggered?
I find that my best ones are either classical music just from the peace and comfort of it.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've found a lot of comfort in very specific pieces that I go back to every single time. And also ironically rock music, I find that the very steady, fast-paced tempo and knowing a rock song that I enjoy or hold close to my heart, it helps calm me down and bring me back to a nicer headspace.
Right. Also, that noise can kind of be
Yeah.
somehow soothing. What are some of your kind of go-to classical pieces,
Yeah.
or rock even?
Yeah, classical pieces. I know I've gone to the Mendelssohn E flat string
Mm-hmm.
octets very often. I've gone to either Brahms clarinet trio or Brahms piano quintet. Those ones. A lot of them also have nostalgia for me or some kind of
Mm-hmm.
emotional aspect to it to where I can really lean into the music and fully let my emotions
Mm-hmm.
calm down.
Mm-hmm.
Classic rock, it's usually whatever comes up on my Spotify playlist will be from very specific bands that I've known for many years, whether it be Van Halen, Bad Company, things like that.
All right, going back to the 80s. Excellent. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, a lot of that guitar music was, very, conducive to kind of drowning drowning stuff out. I spent, many years in my 80s, yeah, drowning out triggers. Um, yeah, very interesting. Well, yeah, no, yeah, this is really cool. Um, yeah, I'm curious, actually, have you ever thought about going to see, like, an audiologist or other type of therapist to kind of like, I know you've talked to your main doctors, but I'm curious if, that has made you think about, seeking out, like, more specific help with someone who might actually know what they're talking about when it comes to misophonia.
Mhm. I we have My mom and I actually have looked into this. We have looked for people. The problem is we can never really find anybody who's ever heard of it. My mom has asked
Mhm.
many people in many different locations, and she works in the healthcare herself.
Mm,
So she, both of us have just not been able to find somebody who knows what it is and can attempt to help us.
yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Well, um, well, I mean, yeah, maybe we can um, talk about that offline, or maybe look. There's, I think, the Misophonia Association has like a directory of some people who obviously are know what misophonia is and might be able to help. I mean, there's different avenues. You can go audiologist or psychologist, just like or there's quite a wide spectrum. So I guess it might depend on which direction you want to go. But believe it or not, there are a few people around that do know what it is. Well, cool. Yeah, I don't know. I guess anything else you kind of want to share with people, or anything you want to plug, maybe a improv performance, or if you're looking for maybe some people to um, talk to before you start your research on misophonia. Yeah, anything you want to share with people
Yeah.
or advice?
Um, as far as plugging things, I would like to send you things separately once I have them ready, both from Improv Trio and for future research. And I'd like to keep in touch about that to hopefully update and provide good updates on what I'm working on, things like that. As far as advice goes, I'd just say remember you are not alone, you are not crazy. There is a real thing going on in your brain, and there are many people just like you who are going through the same exact battle, and we can all do this together. We will find a way to get through this and to hopefully let the world know who we are and what we're doing.
Very well said, Jessica. Yeah, that's great. Usually I put people on the spot, and it's kind of takes a second to come up with something. But that's really well said, and yeah, appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, I always appreciate people who are willing to do research. I mean, you're about to do some research on it, specifically take time out um, and make it part of your. I mean, that consider this part of your career, even though you're still in school. This is it's always good to hear from people who are trying to push the envelope. So yeah, appreciate and good luck with whatever you're doing. And yeah, I'm as people may or may not know, or they should know by now. I'm always willing to I want to promote anything people are working on. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll have links to anything you send me in the show notes. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jessica. I will definitely share links to anything you want to promote, and that goes for anyone out there with misophonia. We should seek out and feed each other's creative outlets. If you like this episode, remember, don't forget to leave a quick review or just hit the 5 stars or wherever you listen to the show. You can hit me up at hello@misophoniapodcast.com or go to the website, misophoniapodcast.com, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Remember to support the show if you can at Patreon, patreon.com/misophoniapodcast. The music, as always, is by Moby. And until next week, wishing you peace and quiet.